Biography of Gerald Ford. Chapter 1. Early Life. Gerald Rudolph Ford, Jr. was born on July 14, 1913 in Omaha, Nebraska. His birth name was Leslie Lynch King, Jr., but he was adopted by his stepfather, Gerald Ford, after his mother remarried. He grew up in a modest household in Michigan. Ford was an active child, playing sports and excelling in school. He attended South High School in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where he was known as a popular and athletic student. Ford's passion for sports continued into college. He went to the University of Michigan, where he played football and was part of a national championship-winning team. After graduating in 1935 with a degree in economics, Ford went on to study law at Yale University. He graduated in 1941 and began working as a lawyer in Michigan. During World War II, Ford served in the U.S. Navy as a lieutenant commander in the Pacific. His time in the military was an important chapter in his life, shaping his sense of duty and responsibility. After the war, Ford returned to Michigan and began his political career, eventually becoming a U.S. congressman. Chapter 2. Rise in Politics. Gerald Ford entered politics in 1948 when he ran for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. Ford's reputation as a hard-working and honest person helped him win the election, and he quickly became known as a moderate and effective legislator. He served in the House of Representatives for 25 years, representing Michigan's 5th District. During his time in Congress, Ford gained the respect of both Democrats and Republicans. He worked on a variety of issues, including defense, foreign policy, and education. Ford also became known for his involvement in the Warren Commission, which investigated the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. In 1965, Ford was elected House Minority Leader, where he became a key figure in Republican leadership. His ability to work across party lines and his reputation for honesty earned him the trust of many colleagues. Ford's calm and steady leadership made him a respected figure in Washington. Chapter 3. Becoming Vice President. In 1973, President Richard Nixon faced growing pressure from the Watergate scandal, which threatened to bring down his administration. In response, Nixon's vice president, Spiro T. Agnew, resigned due to charges of corruption. Nixon needed to appoint a new vice president, and he chose Gerald Ford for the job. Ford was confirmed by Congress and became the 38th vice president of the United States. His appointment was unusual because Ford was not elected to the position. He was selected by the president and confirmed by Congress. Ford's role as vice president was largely ceremonial, but he quickly gained national attention as a steady and trustworthy figure. In August 1974, when President Nixon resigned due to the Watergate scandal, Ford became president. This marked the beginning of a new chapter in Ford's life, as he took office in the midst of a national crisis. Chapter 4. Becoming President. On August 9, 1974, Gerald Ford became the 38th President of the United States after Richard Nixon resigned. Ford's presidency began at a difficult time. The country was deeply divided over the Watergate scandal, and many people had lost trust in the government. Ford's first major act as president was to grant a full pardon to Nixon, which was highly controversial. Ford believed that pardoning Nixon would help heal the country and allow it to move forward. Ford also faced economic challenges, including high inflation and rising unemployment. He worked to reduce inflation by cutting government spending and increasing interest rates. These efforts were not immediately successful, but Ford's focus on the economy and his steady leadership earned him praise from some quarters. One of Ford's most significant accomplishments during his presidency was his work to improve relations with the Soviet Union. He continued the policy of détente, which sought to ease tensions between the U.S. and the USSR. Ford also worked to improve relations with China and other countries, building on the diplomatic successes of his predecessors. Chapter 5. Domestic Challenges. Ford's presidency was marked by several important domestic issues. In addition to struggling with the economy, he had to deal with growing discontent over the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. The Vietnam War had ended in 1975, and the country was trying to heal from the years of conflict. Ford tried to focus on domestic reforms, such as reducing the federal budget deficit and improving health care, but he faced challenges from Congress. In 1975, Ford also faced a difficult situation when the U.S. Embassy in Saigon was evacuated following the fall of South Vietnam to communist forces. The U.S. had to deal with the fallout of the war and the challenges of accepting refugees and rebuilding trust in the government. Ford's domestic policy was also shaped by the need to address energy shortages and environmental concerns. In 1975, he signed the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, which aimed to reduce the country's dependence on foreign oil. He also worked to strengthen the Clean Air Act, which focused on reducing air pollution. Chapter 6. Foreign Affairs and Diplomacy. Foreign policy was a central part of Gerald Ford's presidency. He inherited a complex global situation with tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, as well as the aftermath of the Vietnam War. Ford continued the policy of détente, which aimed to reduce the threat of nuclear war and improve relations with the Soviet Union. In 1975, Ford attended the Helsinki Accords, a major diplomatic conference aimed at improving relations between the West and the Eastern Bloc. The conference resulted in agreements on human rights and security in Europe. Ford's participation in the Helsinki Accords was seen as a major step in promoting peace and cooperation between countries. Ford also focused on strengthening ties with NATO and other allies. His administration worked to enhance cooperation with European countries and Asia, including efforts to improve relations with Japan. Despite challenges, Ford's foreign policy helped maintain stability during a time of significant global tension. Chapter 7. The 1976 Election. In 1976, Gerald Ford ran for re-election as president. His opponent was Jimmy Carter, the former governor of Georgia. The election was closely contested, with Ford facing criticism for his handling of the economy and the aftermath of Watergate. Although Ford was able to unite the Republican Party and win over many voters, the public was still wary of his pardon of Nixon and his leadership during the economic downturn. The election was marked by debates on issues like inflation, energy, and foreign policy. Carter, who presented himself as an outsider and a reformer, gained popularity with voters who were tired of the political establishment. In the end, Ford lost the election to Carter, and his time in office came to an end on January 20th, 1977. Despite losing the election, Ford's campaign was viewed as a strong effort. He ran a dignified race and continued to focus on issues of national importance. His defeat did not diminish his reputation as a man of integrity and a steady leader. Chapter 8. Post-Presidency. After leaving the White House, Gerald Ford returned to California, where he lived a relatively quiet life. He continued to be involved in public service and often spoke about his experiences in politics and his time as president. Ford also worked with various organizations and charities, focusing on issues such as health care and education. In 1994, Ford's wife, Betty Ford, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she became an advocate for cancer awareness. She also founded the Betty Ford Center, a treatment center for addiction and alcoholism. Ford supported his wife's work and became involved in promoting addiction treatment. Gerald Ford lived a long life after leaving the presidency, and he remained active in public life. He wrote his memoirs and continued to give speeches about his experiences in government. He was often called upon for advice by political leaders, and his insights were valued. Chapter 9. Legacy. Gerald Ford's legacy is shaped by his role in the aftermath of Watergate. As president, he worked to restore trust in the government and to heal a divided nation. His decision to pardon Richard Nixon remains one of the most debated aspects of his presidency, but Ford believed it was necessary to move the country forward. Ford is also remembered for his steady leadership during difficult times. He faced challenges in both domestic and foreign policy, but he was known for his calm demeanor and pragmatic approach. His foreign policy, especially in relation to the Soviet Union and China, helped maintain stability during the Cold War. Ford's legacy is also defined by his integrity and commitment to public service. He served as president during a turbulent time and worked to restore faith in American democracy. His post-presidency years were marked by his continued involvement in public life and his dedication to helping others. Chapter 10. Conclusion. Gerald Ford's life was marked by service to his country. He served in the Navy during World War II, worked in Congress for many years, and became president during a time of crisis. His presidency, though brief, was characterized by his efforts to restore the nation's trust in government and to navigate complex domestic and international challenges. Ford's legacy as president is remembered for his honesty, integrity, and steady leadership. His role in healing the nation after the Watergate scandal, his work in foreign policy, and his focus on domestic reforms helped shape the course of American history. Despite facing difficult challenges, Ford remained dedicated to serving the American people and working toward a better future.